How's it going? Welcome to Sunny Sheets. This is the second time I'm recording this video. I always see YouTubers say stuff like that, and this is the first time I'm experiencing having to redo a whole video, so that's awesome. The microphone cut out, so that's why I have to re-record this, but welcome to Sunny Sheets. I'm Carson, and we're back with another book chat. Predictably, I'm sure you can see the pattern, but this is book 3 of the Gunmetal Gods series that we're chatting about today. This is Elder Epoch by Zamil Akhtar. I can't really talk about the specifics of like what the book's about because at this point we're pretty deep into the series, so trying to explain the plot wouldn't make any sense. This one is kind of a continuation of the book that came before it. I kind of mentioned in my book chat of Conqueror's Blood how Conqueror's Blood was its own separate plot from book 1, but in the same world and stuff, of course, and featured some characters. But this is kind of just a straight up continuation of what happened from book 2. Not only was Elder Epoch a direct continuation of the characters and the conclusion of the plot of book 2, Elder Epoch heavily ties in characters from book 1 and stuff that happened in book 1 as well. Not to mention anything specific, but if you enjoyed book 1 and you were hoping for more of that, there you go. I mean, a lot of stuff from book 1 is roped in to book 3. Overall in this book, you're getting a bit more intensity with kind of the darker tones, the tragic stuff that happens in war, and even more of that cosmic horror, grotesque, uncomfortable imagery. You're definitely getting more of that in this book. It's like the same general vibe that book 1 and 2 have given off, but I just thought the intensity was just increased a bit in this book. Another thing that was really awesome is that one of my biggest complaints from book 1 is completely null and void because of what is being set up or what has been foreshadowed might happen into book 4. So that was really awesome. My biggest complaint of the series might be completely null. And if you know, you might know what I'm talking about if you've read the books, but if not, then you definitely don't. But this is all to say, if you can't tell by like the general vibe of what I'm putting down, this was such a good book. It took everything that I loved about book 1 and 2, increased the intensity. It took my minor complaints that I had with book 1 and book 2, and those were null and void. And I thought this book tied in what it had set up, achieved like some new stuff in this book. I thought it set up the series. This book was just perfect to me. It was so hype, I couldn't put the book down. There was so much crazy stuff that happened, and I am more excited than ever to continue this series. There is one more book out right now. There is Dark Drinker, which is the 4th book. And I think I saw in a Reddit comment of Zamil Akhtar's, I think he said he's gonna write one more book. So I believe there's a 5th book that will be the finale. I'm not certain about that, but I think I had read that. So, on to my rating. This was a 10 out of 10 book for me. There wasn't a moment that I did not enjoy. I was constantly turning the page. I couldn't put the book down. There were several hype and just crazy moments. Continued exposure to some of my favorite characters. And yeah, this was the best book in the series so far for me. It's really awesome because it's really easy for a book series to start off strong in the direction of the series to maybe fall off or to just kind of deteriorate in quality. But this is the first time I've read a series where I get into it and it just gets better and better. And yeah, I couldn't be more hype about the Gunmetal Gods series. This has been awesome. This book was incredible. I loved Elder Epoch. 10 out of 10. Now to the spoilers. We can get to specifics. If you know, you know. Micah the Metal seems to be making a comeback, which is super dope. If you watch the Conqueror's Blood video, I made comments how Micah the Metal is a lot more black and white evil, or like just more blatantly morally corrupted, but he was so cool. I loved him. I thought he was a badass character. And that was my biggest complaint of book one, was that he got like presumably killed off in a really anticlimactic way. And I didn't know anything about the book series. I thought Micah was going to be the antagonist for like the whole deal. I thought the saga between him and Keva was going to continue. So when book two, when Conqueror's Blood was about this separate plot in Alanya, I was really surprised and a bit disappointed that Micah was gone. But now it's heavily foreshadowed he's coming back, which is so sick. I'm so pumped to read Dark Drinker. Another thing that I thought this book did the best out of the three books so far is the moral grayness of the characters. Because in book one, Micah and Keva are a bit more blatantly good and evil. Not quite, but they're a bit more black and white. But then Conqueror's Blood, Syra and Zedra, I kind of mentioned that they do this sort of moral shift, and I thought they were pretty interesting, but kind of bland characters that I didn't enjoy as much. And I thought this book did the best job. Keva gets a lot more morally gray. He starts slipping a little bit with his morals, and he's willing to do a lot more darker stuff, and he's willing to murder people pretty easily just to get a political standing with where he wants or what's beneficial to Keva. So Keva starts to devolve a little bit, and then Syra is still kind of her same level of ambitious and willing to do, she's willing to slaughter the Abyad people in the middle of the desert just to get their money, which is pretty cruel, but she shows a lot of sympathy. The beginning of the book starts with her and Keva and Syra trying to say, hey, chill, like, how about we just chill out and figure this out? And Syra is the one trying to make peace at the very beginning scene of the book, and Keva's the one refusing. And yeah, I just thought Syra was given a lot more personality and a lot more sympathy that fleshed her out a bit more. And then Basil was interesting because Basil the Conqueror has this history and this legacy. It's in his name, Basil the Conqueror, of being this absolutely ruthless conqueror imperator of the Crucius army that used to be way bigger back then. But he's given the most sympathy and love out of all three of the main people. He constantly shows his sympathy and care for his people. He says that, I may have 10,000, I care for each of them as my son. And he's given a lot of emotion I was not expecting. I thought he was going to be this just scary, like foreboding guy, which he does have that presence. But I was surprised by his characterization and how much emotion and stuff that he got portrayed. And then, like I mentioned in the spoiler-free section, I think the elements of war and the imagery and all of the dark stuff that gives this book its tone, I just thought was heightened. Like some examples, you've got when Syra is facing off with Shah Babur, they like dousing the camels in oil and lighting them on fire as like a scare tactic for the war elephants. Oh, that made me sad. I was like, damn, that's cruel. And then when Keva, I think particularly the scene where I think when Keva first enters the blood plague or the blood cloud around Zelthuria, and the specific imagery that he starts seeing when he's looking at the angel, it's like, oh, it's really gross, really gross. And also just what happens in the blood cloud, all of the veins that start forming in the mountains, and all of the ears and eyeballs and like body parts appearing in food, and people's like the blood pooling behind their eye sockets and the pressure. And it was really, just the whole time being in there was tense. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that was a really interesting plot point, is having the blood cloud surround Zelthuria and people not being able to get out at all. It was kind of interesting, kind of locking us in one place, and Syra being on the outside and sort of controlling who goes in and out. And I thought it was interesting and just really unnerving. Similar to the blood cloud, the whole plot of Basil the Conqueror joining was really interesting because it kind of is a nice way to balance an antagonist, because Basil the Conqueror, back in his day, he conquered. He had a huge area of land conquered, so his military mind was for that time period excellent. And he was a very physically strong man, and his men, in terms of hand-to-hand combat and like spears, were like the best in the world for that time period. But he's 700 years advanced, so it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Men wearing weak iron with spears just can't compete with people with like revolvers shooting bullets and wearing steel alloy armor. Like, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. There's such a technological gap between his army and what the Gloom of Alanya have, that there's like nothing he can do against them. And that puts him at the mercy of Keva and of Syra, because he's so technologically behind. I thought that was a really interesting way to balance like his power and his influence on what happened in the plot. Yeah, that's pretty much all the spoiler specific stuff I have to talk about. Man, Elder Epoch was a banger book. This book was so incredible, and yeah, I can't wait to read Dark Drinker. I think I don't know when this video comes out, but I think it actually, as I'm talking to the camera, my copy of Dark Drinker arrives, and when I finish the book I'm reading now, I will start Dark Drinker. Which I guess I should just set that kind of segues into the next segment. What book am I reading next? I mean, it took me a while to get to recording this video, so I'm actually a decent chunk through the book. But after I read Elder Epoch, I started reading Relic by Preston and Child, which is the first book of the Pendergast detective novels, which are just a bunch of... It's a series, but each book is kind of its own standalone, like, detective, murder, thriller story. Fun fact about how I got to this book is my brother and my dad, they read Still Life with Crows by Preston and Child, which they always talk about. They say it's just such a wild, incredible book. And I've been looking for a copy of that in several bookstores for months. And I always go to the Preston and Child section, and I've seen several, like, I've seen a dozen different books of theirs, and I've yet to find Still Life with Crows. So at one point I gave up, and I just said, you know what, I'll pick up, I saw Relic, I saw it was the first one, I was like, I'll pick it up. I'll read the first Pendergast novel, and then maybe one day get to Still Life with Crows. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks for hanging. You know, if you're on your way out, keep your ears listening. I'm gonna read you a book excerpt before you go. Let's see what we get, something interesting. He thought of his old master Ogion, who might still be on his autumn wanderings over the heights of Gaunt, sleeping out with leafless branches for a roof and falling rain for house walls. A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Thanks for hanging.